to overcome.
Okay, so how much experience have you had working with pupils that have ASD?
In my teaching career, very limited. I've been teaching for 20 years, and although I've worked with a number of deprived settings, the number of children I've had to deal with an autism diagnosis is very few. Since I've been the head teacher here, which has been 10 years, we had an autistic child a couple of years ago. However, we seem to have 3 or 4 either confirmed or suspected in year 3. So there does seem to be an increase in the number of children coming into school showing that sort of sign on the spectrum.
Good. Do you feel you're quite knowledgeable in the area?
No. I think I'm experienced in how to deal with the children, and I think most of that experience is due to me being a father than me being a teacher. So I tend to speak to them in the way I would speak to my 4-year-old, because I think it's very simple, it's down to their level. I don't have a huge amount of knowledge about what autism is and what causes it, but I do know some of the impacts. So I would say I have limited knowledge, but I do know my Senko has a lot more knowledge than me. So what I try and make sure in the way I run the school is the people who know more about things are the people I want to work for me. Not that I'm being lazy, but I know I have the in-house expertise, because I can't know everything. I can't know everything. I have to cut that out, excuse me.
How much was your knowledge due to initial teacher training?
None at all. My initial teacher training doesn't exist anymore. It was a 2-year PGCE called the Article Teacher Scheme, and I was in cohort 3, and they stopped it after cohort 4. So for 2 years I spent about 3 days a week the first year, 4 or 5 days a week the second year in a school working with a mentor, and the rest of the time I had college lectures, and we didn't really do anything to do with SEN. We certainly didn't do phonics. So most teacher training nowadays seems to be following that model of put someone in school and get them to work with an experienced teacher, which kind of makes sense. But unless you're in a class with a teacher with an autistic child, or indeed any particular need, you're not going to get across it. And you know, if I didn't get good enough teacher training on teaching phonics, then autism is going to be much harder to cover.
Interesting. What other training opportunities? Well, you said you haven't had any in
Yeah.
training. What training opportunities have you had?
We have organised a whole school inset day in a week or so time in response to the number of children coming through. I have worked with some very good Senkos, so for me it's not so much training as the kind of CPD of going up to someone and saying what works well with this child. Certainly at this school, if there's a teacher who is dealing with an autistic child, has a great way with them, a great relationship, I then regard them as the expert and would say to them, what do I need to do? I mean, particularly with things like assemblies, you know, are they going to be able to sit in assembly or not? Mm-hmm. If they're not going to be able to sit in assembly, well, let's not put them through that. But at the end of the day, I also think there needs to be some integration. You can't simply, oh, we'll never do it. How are we going to build them up? We're getting the new training in as well. We've also got in a city an autistic resource unit, and that school's part of our cluster. So again, I know where the expertise is, and I can say, speak to those people, get those people in. And finally, for our year 3 pupils, I want to talk to the year 2 staff, because they've been very successful with those children for 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
They know them much better than we do. It seems silly to ignore their experience. So there's that, you know, it's not so much as buying someone in who'll charge me $500 a day for everything you need to know about autism. I need to know the people with practical experience, not just of the need, but of those particular children. Because I think, like dyslexia, there's no one specific sort of autism, and if you look at the autistic children we've got in this school, there's a huge range.
I'm starting to spot a theme.
Well, there's never enough. I mean, there isn't enough investment in teacher training, full stop. The reason for that is political, because Michael Gove wanted to take it away from the universities because he believed the universities were putting a left-wing agenda, so the teachers were coming on doing that. And it was also his desire to be in control of everything. Although he said he wants head teachers to have the power, he doesn't. I've spoken to him, he doesn't. So by bypassing universities, by getting teachers in schools, he feels he is getting a better deal for the teachers. Now the problem with that is even in a 2-year PGC, and I don't know the people who've done 3 or 4 years in BEd, there isn't enough time to do everything. I also think we are getting to the point more and more where primary education is going to have subject specialisms, because the demands on us as primary teachers to know, well, I don't know what a fronted adverbial phrase is. I was never told. Well, I know what it is now, he hastened to add, but how am I supposed to support people who are doing that? It wasn't covered in teacher training in 2010, I expect even 3 or 4 years ago. So schools have to do it because that's where the money is. Local authorities won't. So who do we know? Where are our networks? Where can we get the insight as well? And I don't think it's just all autism. And if you go back to dance or gym or music, I think these are all areas where teachers go, whoa, I better not do it. So I think it's a result of what's happened. I also know that I think it was this current government or in the coalition said too many SEN children were being diagnosed as SEN, and actually they should just get great teaching. So in this school we have halved, I think, our SEN register, because he said, do you know what, actually they're not special needs, they just haven't been taught well enough, which is a very difficult conversation to have. And finally, you know, this need of specialist provisions is not in vogue at the moment. Everybody should be in a mainstream school. Well, these children may not have mainstream needs. And it's hard because actually I look at what my teachers are doing with the autistic children and I wouldn't be able to cope with it. And I know some of my outstanding teachers struggle. With the greatest respect, these are younger teachers in terms of their career. If I'm struggling and I'm supposed to be in charge and the best teacher, what do we do? What do we do? So yeah, it's an ongoing concern. I've just spilled my coffee, which is why that bit of the video looks weird.
Thank you. So what would you say your biggest challenge has been and how did you overcome it?
In terms of autistic children or in terms of life?
In terms of autistic children.
It's money isn't necessarily the solution. Money helps because money allows me to increase staffing. And I think it's the challenge of getting the staffing right, because I've seen some excellent TAs and I've seen some dreadful TAs. I've seen some great teachers and some awful teachers. But I always remember a teacher I had who was failing and went to a different school in a different setting, is now the best teacher there. So it's about getting the right person with the right skills to do that job. Dealing with an autistic child takes a degree of angelicness that not everybody has. You have to have a huge amount of patience. You have to have huge resilience, that you don't take any of this personally, because it's very hard to. And you have to feel you're in a school and a team where you'll get all that support. We've got some great TAs who tick all those boxes, but because they are the sort of person they are, I'm not going to be able to keep hold of them forever. In fact, this year and last year, I've had at least one TA who's left to become a teacher. So it's not only getting the right person, it's trying to make sure that you can keep them, you can retain them as well. You know, some people say, well, if I give you this money, will it help? Well, actually, the money always does help, yeah, but the money isn't the solution. The solution is finding the right person. At the moment, we're in a strong position. People want to work for us. We're able to recruit from quite a wide range of applicants. So if I need to increase resource in terms of one-to-one, and I think I do, my challenge now is to find the right person. And I mean, that's staffing is always the issue. You know, somebody going to Canada to get married, someone having a hip operation, someone having a baby, and someone wanting to work in a special school are all things I'm dealing with this week.
Oh. Wow.
And I love my job. Become a head teacher. We need head teachers.